moving right along to the Denver Broncos, another very interesting team, but just in a very different way. We've talked about the Broncos a lot these last few years about how this roster is very, very good and how they're presumably ready to win if they can just figure out the quarterback spot. But they haven't been able to do that. And, they've put all their chips on the table to try and get the Aaron Rodgers of the world this offseason, possibly a Deshaun Watson. And a lot of the arrows are pointing in the direction of Aaron Rodgers returning to the Green Bay Packers from what I'm seeing. It's not set in stone yet. They could still get Aaron Rodgers, but from what I can see, I'm thinking Aaron Rodgers will go back to Green Bay. So if that is the case, you're kind of in a bit of a pinch now. You have Deshaun Watson, who we still don't know what all the legal stuff is about, and also just do you really want Deshaun Watson like right now, like right this second? I don't know if he'll even be able to play. I don't know if all this will be behind him. So it's a really tricky situation with that. Another option is, of course, Carson Wentz, possibly. Would you give up a fourth-round pick for Carson Wentz? I think you would consider it. It's not the greatest option in the world, but I think it is an upgrade over Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater was a guy who was an extremely inconsistent guy who gave you pretty much 7 or 8 games of good football and 7 or 8 games of not so good football. So you get kind of the same thing with Carson Wentz, except he'll give you about 12 or 13 games of solid, okay-ish football, but he'll have those sprinkled in interceptions and fumbles just to keep you honest, and keep you on your toes, keep you entertained. So if you're willing to deal with that, Carson Wentz could be an option. And then, of course, Jimmy Garoppolo as well. If you want to give up a third-round pick or so to the Niners, that could be an option. But that's also just a duct tape quarterback. That's not a long-term option. And then guys in the draft, do you really want to go from 2-glove Teddy to 2-glove Kenny Pickett, whose hand size is historically low? It's not. I don't want to play into the narrative of hand size being this all-encompassing factor, but playing in Denver in the cold, I think it would probably be more of a factor than in most other places. And then guys like Desmond Ridder and Malik Willis, it's not a lot of good options in the draft. There are chances of them being pretty good, but I just don't think they're year one starter material. So it's tough, but quarterback is the number one priority. And when you think about bringing these other guys back, it's really just you consider Kareem Jackson maybe, but he had a pretty disappointing year last year. I think it's worth considering releasing Graham Glasgow, a guy you gave big money to on the open market a few years ago and hasn't been that good for you. And you already have a replacement for as well. So if you can trade him and get maybe a third-round pick, that would be a pretty good option as well. Of course, Alexander Johnson and Josie Jewell, who is their basically their linebacker duo in the center of their defense. Obviously, it's going to be different now. The linebacker position won't be as important now that they're out of the Vic Fangio system, but it will be still a priority to keep those two guys who really feed off each other well. So pretty interesting offseason for the Broncos. I think you just have to bring some of your guys back, fill some gaps here and there in the draft, and then quarterback. Figure it out.
noticed, like, we're probably noticing a trend by now. I mean, we're on our 16, and we're like, okay, bring some of your guys back, address some needs of the draft, and then if you need a quarterback or one of these big positions of need, then go try to do that. But yeah, Broncos another interesting team coming in with about 40 million in cap space. Quarterback is obviously the main priority. I think at this point with the Broncos, unless we get news that Aaron Rodgers wants to leave, probably be the leading candidate for that. If you can do that, then that's probably the direction they're going to go. Obviously, with the new hire of Nathaniel Hackett as head coach, which is something I think we should discuss. But yeah, quarterback's got to be the main issue. I think right now you probably want to just look at maybe a duct tape quarterback. Bridgewater does. I don't think Carson Wentz will ultimately be that bad of an option. If you're desperate and he's on the open market, or maybe you have to give up a third or fourth round pick, I mean, he's the guy who gave you. I know he has his moments where you just left scratching your head, but he does have. He was still a guy that was a 27 touchdown, 7 pick, like 4-to-1 touchdown interception ratio guy last year. So it'd be some solid physical. Look into that if that's available to you. Being on a contract, but certainly a 1 or 2 year deal, I think could be good for them. And he can give you enough to at least get you into the playoffs and give you a chance when you get there with this roster. If not, maybe look to the cheaper side. I know James Saints want to do with him. I don't know what his situation. He could be a younger option that you can maybe look to. I know he's coming off an ACL injury, but I don't worry too much about that with quarterbacks, especially quarterbacks that don't have to run all that much. Denver fans don't want to probably hear this, but Mitchell Trubisky is a guy that's been getting a lot of talk as of late. I'm not saying I would do that, but if you're desperate and you need a more athletic guy who has some playoff experience and has experience winning, maybe you look to that for just 1 year. Probably not winning a Super Bowl with that, but he has gotten to the playoffs before and had some success. So it could be obviously worse with Drew Lock if ultimately let Teddy Bridgewater. But we won't. That's a different discussion. Quarterbacks, obviously, the main need. That's what you need if you want to elevate this team to the next level. Then I would say secondary. Kyle Fuller's a free agent. Bryce Callahan's a free agent. And Kareem Jackson is a free agent. I'd probably try to bring back. They do have the cap space where I try to bring back one of those two corners. I don't know a whole lot about either of them, but I would try to bring back one of them. I don't think you want to lose all those guys. I think it's interesting what you brought up about Kareem Jackson. You could probably end up replacing him. But yeah, I think secondary, there are some other cornerback options that they could go explore on the free agent market or through the draft. And then keeping that linebacking core intact, maybe you try to make an upgrade, maneuver some cap, but maybe keeping Alexander Johnson and the other guy you mentioned on a cheaper deal. I don't know what they're obviously going to demand, but trying to keep those guys. And then lastly, I forgot to mention him, Melvin Gordon.
Running back. He's also a free agent. I would try to bring him back. I know he's voiced his interest in wanting to remain in Denver. I think he's found sort of a home there and gave you solid production last year. I would try to keep him on a team-friendly contract. So that's kind of my idea for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing that I didn't mention is there is some options for them at pass rusher. to pair possibly Bradley Chubb with a guy. There is the possibility of bringing back Von Miller, which would be obviously every Broncos fan's dream. And maybe even a Sedarius Smith, who would be a pretty good scheme fit as well. In terms of 3-4 edge rushers, there is a few guys, and also including Chandler Jones as well. I'm not sure if you'd want to be the team that would want to give him the big bucks, but that is option. So there is quite a few options out there in terms of edge rushers. And I think that could also be a possible need as well, since Bradley Chubb hasn't really shown to be the alpha rusher that you had thought he would be.
And you do have right now the 9th pick in this year's draft. So if you wanted to maybe go young and try and draft another quarterback, you could probably do that. Get one of the top guys, Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis, if you wanted to. But I ultimately see them probably being more aggressive and going into the free agent trade market. Try and get either a stopgap option like Jimmy Garoppolo or a potential franchise guy like that could win you a Super Bowl in this window with this roster like Aaron Rodgers. So with that,
thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed that video, make sure to click on one of these 2 videos right here, our latest video right here on the left, or the video YouTube recommends for you on the right.